that's okay, because we're still here in Trekland. And Plushy McCoy is still back there. And we are live, right? Lost names, saved memories. Hopefully. Today on episode 330 of Trekland Tuesdays Live with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemechek, coming at you here from the heart of Trekland. Right here through Portal 47, through Trekland Treks. Yes, for some sanity, clarity, and a bigger picture in all things Star Trek. Hey, it's a happy Wednesday to everybody. How many of you made the leap from Tuesday? We were a little detained yesterday. I hope you saw all the announcements and the swings there. What happened here? There we go. Good to see everybody falling in. Hey, if you are new to Trekland Tuesdays on Wednesday, if you're new to TTL this week, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. I'm thrilled to, I'm curious to know how you found out about us. Maybe you can let us know that in the chat. But look, go to the chat because we got a great TTL community. We are global because of this time of day here in the States. And I'm thrilled that you're watching us live, if you are, because you can interact with so many folks around the world. We've got people on all continents now. Just I think we've had everybody in now finally, except for Antarctica. So we'll see how that goes. But got a great topic for you today. I've got news for you today. We've got breaking news that's just been happening. In fact, it's crazy. I came up with this topic yesterday. And then lo and behold, I wake up this morning and something in the news just reinforces what I was thinking. So that doesn't always happen. But first, I've got some even more breaking news. I think you've heard that it's coming up on our annual open house in Portal 47. Portal 47 is your backstage pass to more in-depth Trek. Portal 47 is my backstage package. We've got a lot of portales here. We're coming up on the 8th anniversary of Portal 47. We were Zooming before it was cool, before pandemic time, and communicating and sharing so much from Backstage Trek and the people that made it that you never hear from, because Portal 47 is for all the folks who have no idea how much Star Trek they still have no idea about. And I don't mean trivia kings. I mean the stuff that makes it worthwhile watching. When you've been around the block 4 or 5 or 6 or 47 times, hopefully you're hearing from the folks and the insights that keep making Star Trek even fresher. The reason it's been around for 60 years. And the news today is every year we have an open house that's free to the public. We have a great guest. We kind of sample. I kind of show off how the portal works. We have a mini Ask Dr. Trek roundtable. Then we have a great guest who's a headliner guest. This year, I've been teasing this. Now we moved to Wednesday, November 15th. So in 2 weeks, I can now let you know that our guest this year is the great Nick Meyer. Yes. Nick Meyer, not only amazing for all the 80s revolution and yes, saviorizing of Star Trek, but also involved with Discovery at the beginning in that crazy time, and still sitting out there with a script for a 3-part miniseries on Khan's Decade in Exile, which at last report is to be an audio drama. What's up with that? So whatever he's at liberty to talk about, we will talk about that. And of course, it's open to everybody's questions submitted in advance or in the chat. It's an amazing night. It's all there. And we'll be giving away door prizes. I'll have books and DVDs, maybe something else. But you've got to register, and you can, it's very easy. Just let me know you're coming. Where are we? Let me know you're coming by just checking in at, there we go. Go to LarryNemechek.com/openhouse23. Now, this is so breaking that I haven't had time to change the graphics over, but the form is all good. But Nick is going to be our guest, Nick Meyer. He is still out there blowing, still writing his Sherlock Holmes book series. He's got a new one coming out, the 13th, maybe? The 13th book. Anyway, great guy. And I think he's actually warmed up to his Star Trek heritage more in the last 5-10 years than he ever did over the years. So Go to right now to openhouse/openhouse23 at my site. You can sign up. You'll be there for information about the Zoom link, obviously, but about how to submit questions. And most of all, you will be in the drawing that we will do at least 3 or 4 times during the evening. Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. If I do say so myself. So I wanted to get that out here. You all are hearing it before anybody else is. All right. And hey, I'm so glad you're here. But look, if let me get the chat here. If you're here with us for the first time, you may not know. The chat is rolling. Please introduce yourself. Please let everybody know where you're coming from, where you're from, what's your trek, what you do. But here's the thing. I won't be interacting with the chat at first. I'm going to get off on my soapbox here. We'll take a very quick break for the YouTubers that are going to go away. But everybody's here. Then I'll be back. We will actually look at a little bit of what passes for Parrot Analytics reporting, just a tiny little bit. And then I will dive full bore in the chat, okay? So I will back scroll and we will circle. And it's become a thing probably wackily unique to Trekland Tuesdays Live that you see nowhere else. But I will back scroll or you can save your questions for later. And of course, if you're on Facebook or Twitch, you're seeing everything. No. If you're on YouTube and Twitch, you're seeing everything. Facebookers are only seeing the Facebook questions. So don't let that be confusing. Please go over to YouTube. It helps me out with the analytics there. And we are now a super chat program. So you can throw some coinage my way and I will scan for those questions first. Okay. But here's the thing. I'm so thrilled to finally, Nick has been somebody in my mind for the last few years. And when we've had the likes of Mike McMahon and Renee Echevarria and David Livingston and Mike Westmore and David Carson, director, and I'm leaving people out. And yes, Bob Butler, who directed The Cage, was my very first open house guest. And then we had him live. His son helped get him down to Comic-Con San Diego live. So we've got a wonderful history of our open house guests. The portal is awesome too. And I know we've got Portales here in the Portales from around the world who are here. That's all exciting. What's one of those little stories that starts out small? And here's today's topic. Starts out small and then kind of builds. So I don't know how much you were hanging out online over the weekend. Happy November, by the way, everybody. Hope you had a good Halloween. But I don't know how much you were hanging out online, because there was this slow bubble that was happening in a good way, And I still don't know all my theories about where this started. People say, I don't know, I'm just passing the signal on. I'm just boosting it. I don't know. But everybody from random people pinging me, dragging me into Facebook and Instagram and Twitter threads, X. And then I get DM from a good friend, from our good friend Dayton Ward, of course, the author and the current consultant for the franchise for much of it. And he gets to talk about it in public now. Years ago, it was just a thing. We didn't make a big deal out of it. No, there's this ongoing bubble. Everybody from Dayton on down has asked me this. There's apparently a big hunt out for the identity of this guy, right? Obviously, you can see he's one of the drill thralls. He was in some of the opening scenes. African-American, extra, obviously had no lines. And people are trying to figure out who he is. He turned up in a couple of other original series episodes, too. He was in the Mirror Universe, and he actually had a Prime Universe shot, too. And it's funny because people are trying to track who he is. Not unlike people for years tried to track or falsely thought they had the information on who was Human Isis in Assignment Earth original series, right? The woman in the cat suit, who was apparently Isis the cat shape-shifting, which was a totally bonkers little side tangent to what could have been Assignment Earth. I still think that the BBC doesn't really have a case against Desilu Paramount for copyright infringement off of copying Doctor Who and his companions. I think there was so little mix back in the day in 1968 that it wasn't a thing. But The show was not picked up from the backdoor pilot. We have always, if you're a first-time Star Trek fan, the first time you go to the series, you go, why are Kirk and Spock in this so little? Well, it was the backdoor pilot. Very famously done. Hey, we've got episodes on this on the Trek Files, as have other people. But nobody knew her identity. Then it was wrongly attributed for years and years and years that Human Isis was Victoria Vetri, who was a Playmate of the Year at one point, and all that stuff. And then had a checkered, interesting, colorful history as she got older. And no, it was all undone. But the question is, if it wasn't her, then who was it? Well, here's the thing. When we talk about who was Human Isis, when we talk about who was this guy, it's funny. I think our 2023 is showing. I think it's doing that at least with the people young enough who weren't alive at the time. Because here's the deal. We're a little spoiled because first we had Bijo Trimble doing her concordance. Showed the way how that should be done. And yeah, it started with Dorothy Jane's height. Okay. Then Bijo did the lion's share. And then Bijo's especially the 90s update that she did. And a lot of people don't, they think it ended with the wheel. There's the fan version and the wheel edition. And no, I'm not going to pull them out. But she updated in the 90s and had a slew more information. One thing, she has a very hysterical foreign translations of episodes, which are really funny. The Japanese, the German, you know. But she had a ton more information on stand-ins and unnamed, uncredited extras. Now, here is the thing. Watching people talk about our friend here that people are trying to identify, this African-American extra, and if it's not on Memory Alpha, here's the thing. Memory Alpha, of course, scoops up, repurposes, just like companion stuff. No, they collate everything and get it in the entries, fine. And they have tons of lists of unknowns, unmentions. And they always say, so-and-so was hired as a background extra and received no credit for this role. Well, of course, everybody, I think the least savvy TV person gets what an extra in the background is. But because they were so front and center in shows like Star Trek, where they were crew, recurring crew, the smart producers then, just as the smart producers now, just as the producers of Chuck had the nerd herd and the Buy More store employees all as a regular pool of extras. Chuck was the best thing after Enterprise ended. Half of Star Trek worked on it, by the way. I'm exaggerating, but if you're a conscientious producer and you have the capacity to have, like the West Wing, the office help in the West Wing offices that were just background extras, all kinds of series that if it's a series and it makes sense to do that, they go to that trouble to have a pool of regulars that people get even if they never talk, even if there's not a story about them, you subtextually feel like you're in a real place because the real people are still there. And you never know, one of them might get a line. One of them might get a line and get a credit if in the finale or the final season. But that's not the norm. And there are times when, whether you're in the moment and you're watching in the 60s, or whether it's 50 years later and you're a young fan who's just coming to it, and you see something, and maybe you see a striking vision of lines or not, and you see our friend here, and you say, oh, I wonder who that is. And you've bumbled around Memory Alpha long enough to know there's a million extras who we now have their names recorded, right? It's really easy to think that you're not realizing, if you're new to the franchise, you're not realizing that, well, Bijo in LA went through records, got a ton of names, gave them to us in the 90s, and baby Memory Alpha and all its contributors very early on scoured through everything that was in print officially and plopped it in there to collate it. And a lot of that work that she did, amazing stuff. Who are the extras in Journey to Babel? Some of that is still not out. But that's there. And then in the last 20 years, the rise of digital wikiing, of which Memory Alpha did it on paper first, as Bijo's concordance, as my concordances. It was all on paper. Mike did the encyclopedia using our stuff and then building from there from someone inside. And then all that just converting digitally. And now we've had 20 years of not just fans, but people running the shows who just go to Memory Alpha. And that's cool. We live in a digital age. But there's an assumption, and can I even say maybe a naive arrogance, that it's all there. And watching this weekend, people kind of be gobsmacked that somehow 50 years later, 60 years later nearly, we don't know some of these people. There's a lot of extras. There's a lot of people on crews. There are a lot of people that worked at vendors and built models, performed effects. There are a lot of names, much less pictures to go with the names, headshots, that we still don't know. So sorry, there are situations like that from the Berman era. There, next generation, we still have holes. Now, look, as the years went by, call sheets got a little more informative, and the regular crowd especially would get in. A lot of times, the regular crowd of extras would double as stand-ins. And if they were kind of the body shape, not physical doubles, but if they were kind of the physical shape, and they were dependable and they'd been around a while, they might get a uniform and be on camera. And they're probably wearing the same division color as the person they stand in for. Not always, but a lot of the times. And so they're then, of course, stand-ins are there to set lights and do blocking when they don't need the A team, as they would say. Be A team, first team, and then B team, second team. That's a whole thing. And that's what we get into. And I've had so many stand-ins and extras be guests on Portal 47, which is an awesome part of why we do. Because if they're there for years and years and years, they have all the great background stories and insights, and they work with not just actors, but also a lot of the crew. That's why they're a wonderful asset. So there is so much to knowing extras and stand-ins and / stand-in extras. There's so much worth and value in getting them recorded, getting them in the history books, beyond just having their name. Because here's the thing, our gentleman here from the 60s, I'm not going to doubt that he's long passed. But did he have kids? Did he have offspring? Did he leave memories and or mementos to his progeny? To anybody, to friends? We can't start tracking that until we know. Now, thankfully and amazingly, when we found April Tatro, who was the human Isis, she lived 2 miles away from the Roddenberry offices and was in wonderful shape and still taught Pilates. She was a contortionist back in the day and did extras work and did some lines and popped up on everything from Laugh In to Johnny Carson, but was still with us to be a guest. And that's one of the most legendary moments of anything I've done, much less on the Trek Files. But yes, our younger fans and maybe people not thinking how this goes, they're just kind of shocked that we don't have complete records. Why do we not have complete records? Because extras were on the bottom of the totem pole. They didn't get credit. They're not on screen. The further down you are on the pecking order, on the totem pole, the less paperwork there is for you. That includes, in the old days, and even for half of the modern era, not even being on the call sheet, or maybe being a last name, maybe being an initial last name. That's why you'll see that. At least there's that maybe Memory Alpha can grab onto. I have my call sheet collection over here from all the Berman shows. I'm working on the original series movies and episodes. I've got maybe a third of them. But nobody wrote extras' names on 60s call sheets, at least on Star Trek. But there is a record. Central Casting, extras casting, and back when there was an extras guild, a SEG, not SAG, there was a Screen Extras Guild, and famously, you may know this, for the famous rec deck scene in the motion picture, when the promises to so many fans and friends of the show and friends of Roddenberry's couldn't be included in that homage scene on the rec deck because the Screen Extras Guild threw a little bit of a fit and said, hey, you're taking jobs away from our members. So they had to come up with a compromise and a quota to only have so many people be the fans, be the thank yous, be the wives and spouses and nieces and nephews. All the people that knew somebody who was a cool thing. And yeah, we know so many folks are in there. We don't know all of them. And a lot of the bodies that we don't know are people who were in the Screen Extras Guild, and we need to find that paperwork. But here is the deal. It's not a magic moment. It's not a Harry Potter. It's not a abracadabra thing to find those people. Because sadly, after all this time, and here's the bitter truth, the sad truth, the unglamorous truth about finding April Tatro. Nobody else has this paperwork. Nobody else has kept paper. Nobody at Central Casting or whoever the casting office was that sent one-off extras especially. Now, the extras who are around for a long time, right? Like Bill Blackburn. You go up and down the folks who were extras because they were stand-ins. If they were regular extras and they were around, they have a legacy. They were a stunt guy, stunt woman. If they were around the show for a long time, the more they're around, the odds are that they had mementos, or the odds are that sometime in the last 50 years, they went to a convention. They might have even had a signing agent. My friend Scott Day now is looking to find a lot of these folks and get them to signing shows like the Hollywood show, if not Vegas. But not everybody is that way. Some folks have passed already. Some folks, like April had no clue that she was lost. She knew. Her friends knew her legacy, including being on Star Trek once. She was gobsmacked that we all considered her lost when we found her. But what did it hinge on? The paper. The paper. What am I trying to say here? Just paper. You know, if Samuel T. Cogley can have books, then I'm going to say paper, my boy, paper. And that's all it took. One day, as we were working on the Trek files, and I realized that some episodes had the little tissue paper carbons of the extras list, I said, we should check that for Assignment Earth. Because who was the number one unknown extra? Even though she was a featured extra, had to bring her own costume, even though she stands out, not like one of 17 crew in the background, that's no lines is no lines. She got paid a little more because she had to bring her own costume in. Those sheets have the day rates too. They're amazing. And you can find that in our whatever episode of the Trek Files that is. I'll flash it here. But an extra is an extra, right? A background atmosphere performer is just that. They got paid, they signed in, they signed out, they went home. No residuals, that's the whole point. No residuals, no nothing, except they can go and, oh, look there. And maybe if they made a splash, maybe if they worked well, they get to know enough casting people, they get to know enough assistant directors who keep that pool going. And they get to know them. And so next time they need somebody, they can give a different look. They have a lot of clothing. They call them in. You're working on your own. They're not casting so much. At the beginning of a series, maybe. At the beginning of a season, yeah. But in the day-to-day of a long 26-episode season, you rely on those relationships like so much else and get called in. This fellow was in 3 Star Treks. Maybe he moved. Maybe, and it was Star Trek trying to show a diversity in the 60s there. And its limited little ability, what it could do. And getting a black faces on screen. Of course, there were a little more exotic roles, but then again, he had one where he was just a normal crewman too. So good on Bob Justman, good on the team. But no, it's not so much racist because there's lots of white background extras that we have no idea who they are because they were extras. And in the intervening years, they or their kids didn't chime into Memory Alpha and say, hey, track down somebody and say, hey, my dad, my mom was this person. Here's a name. And people, and the the anal completists of Memory Alpha, bless their heart. I have a bit of that in me too. We're happy to scribble it in there. So what happened this weekend? Everybody somehow, I swear to God, I got at least 5 or 6 different inquiries from people saying, Larry, do you know who this is? And that's why he fell through the cracks. Now, maybe not though. Maybe his name, like April Tatro, is sitting on a piece of paper in the archives in the Roddenberry offices. Maybe not. Not every episode was blessed to have those things survive. It's a crapshoot now. And next week, I'm going to try to get by and see if I can help solve this mystery. The same way we did with April without all that advance notice. What I'd like to do, and I know Memory Alpha has them listed, unknown performers. It would be great to sit down, figure that out, look at their scene, go to the script, get the scene number, make sure we're talking about the right person, because they're listed out by females and males at least. And then by scenes. And sometimes we have to do deduction. But to at least start on that, that'd be a project to go through and see how many of those we could have. Because I'm sure at the very end of it, we won't have extras for everybody. We won't have those extra casting sheets for everyone, and especially in the third season. Budgets were being cut. Things weren't as thorough, and there just weren't as many extras for a lot of the episodes if they didn't need them. Who are those people overpopulating? Yeah, that kind of thing. But that's the secret. That was going to be my theme for today. And then what happens, lo and behold, not on the people side, but on the physical media side. And of course, my photos just went away. I wake up today to find the shocking news that are you aware of this? Gene Roddenberry's long lost, thought stolen, the 3-foot original Richard Dayton sample Enterprise model, the one that he brings out to Gene on the set of The Cage at the Rigel Fortress down at 40 Acres, Desilu Culver, when they're shooting the Pike fighting scenes right at the Rigel Fortress with Vina. And there's pictures of Gene looking at it. Richard Dayton had just turned the small model out before they started working on the big one, and spending all this money on a silly sci-fi pilot. Oh my God. How much are you going to spend on this before we cancel it? We don't pick it up. Thankfully, it was picked up, and thankfully, we're all here today. But that model sat with Gene for ages, well into the 70s, well into the beginnings of the motion picture. It was on his desk in his office, wherever his office was. It's in pictures, and somewhere along the way, it was loaned out. So the story goes, after he passed, under Magel's care, and it did not return. All the usual suspects were asked and quite honestly said, don't know. What is amazing, it's one of those mysteries. It's one of those mysteries like April Tatro, like who was human Isis, that whether it was a mystery, at least we know this is a mystery. For 10, 15 years, we didn't think there was a mystery about human Isis. It was Victoria Vetri. But this is a mystery that's been well known and well wondered about. And lo and behold, last night, hey, the model side of the tech head side, right, blows up because this is a photo that's in, of all things, an eBay sales entry. An auction is starting off, asking price $1,000 plus postage. Close-ups of the 3-foot model. Well, what's happened is, where are we here? How did I do that? What's happened here? Look at this. What's happened is the seller bought one of those empty, like unclaimed storage units, and he cleaned it out, found the model. It's still on the stand that you see in Gene's. It's obviously the same thing. It's been aged. It's got aging, sadly. It's sat in a storage unit for ages. And the story is, this is still a breaking story at news time because it just broke this morning or last night. It popped up last night. Now, the sale has been taken down, the auction, and the buyer or the seller, the buyer of the storage unit, this is one for Storage Wars. My God, the buyer of the storage unit is talking to Rod and Trevor, talking to the Roddenberry estate about what to do about this, because he bought, but here's the mystery. It's like, do we know the facts yet about who owned the storage locker? Do we have the trail? It's the provenance is unmistakable. But what is the trail for this? And it's amazing because I'd already started to talk a little bit about why things aren't automatic. Why do we not automatically know that guy's name? And here's the thing. Why do we not automatically know what happened to the kids? It's history. It's the passing years. And just because everything is so freaking digital now, and we take shots of everything. We take videos of everybody, everything. Wasn't always the case. We have so much digital footprinting going on. It wasn't always the case. We had paper, and sometimes the paper would be thrown. This is why I saved in my power when I got keys to a little car and a bigger car. When I got to LA, even before I got to LA, I was asking people threw call sheets away. People threw all kinds of things away because it was over. The publicity departments, when a series ended, publicity at Paramount threw the slides away. The licensing department's set were intact. Well, they had been beaten up too over the years. We did not get down in time to save the DS9 slide collection from publicity because DS9 was a dead show now. So what do we need these for? We won't be dealing with reporters doing, see, and that's that mindset about promoting versus archiving. It still is a factor. A lot of times people's decisions on a here and now show that's active, everything is driven by promoting it now. And that's cool. That's when your interest aligns. Eventually the show is gone and the here and now promoters don't care anymore. What happens is the care passes to the provenance of those who are dealing with the legacy, the archival. And sometimes that's another wing of the corporation, right? That's archives, that's licensing, marketing, because you're going to have product come from these greatest hits. It's still valuable to them. It's still even a revenue maker. And of course, anybody involved in now digital, online, websites, marketing, that's all worth having an archive, as it was back in the 90s when I came to it. Same way with the paper days. Who cared about these extras on a show 50 years ago? I'm sure Central Casting cleaned out those files long ago. That is why, if we're going to find these names, there's basically only one place to go. It's who was the only one who still cared and had stability. Here's the thing, lots of people care, but eventually there's a flood. There's a fire, or maybe businesses go out of business. Family businesses have no heirs. The next generation doesn't care about the family business and they throw everything out. How many restaurants have I seen close around me here right now in greater LA because the kids didn't care about inheriting the beloved parents' restaurant? Beloved by the fans, not so much by the family. In this case, we are lucky in that A, Star Trek was a thing early. Gene and Majel kept everything, and Rod has been smart enough to keep it going. It helps having revenue makers to help provide that. But in other words, we've got a perfect storm to the good. And so normally this kind of record keeping would be lost. Normally, maybe one producer of a series would keep a lot of paper, and sometimes the kid might donate it to a library. There's all kinds of ways these things play out. But look, guys, they say history is written by the victors. History is also written by the careful. And in this case, we carefully are blessed to have a lot of records we might not otherwise have. History was not written by the careful in the case of the 3-footer. Somebody who took it, stuck it away, and probably knew that if they put it out on their coffee table, people would eventually ask questions, especially if they had another fan in their house. See, this is the great thing about stealing paintings from the Louvre. Where are you going to show it? Are you such a billionaire? Whether you got it in an auction or you had ways, are you such a type that wants to get it? And are you a golem with your ring and you can't show anybody else and you just sit and stare at your precious until you're gone? Or you're ashamed then and you can't admit that you've got it, and so you stick it in your storage locker and you just leave it for the poor schmuck that comes in to buy your unclaimed goods, and lo and behold, there's the 3-foot Enterprise from 1964, the first Enterprise. But this is why what I do and what so many people do is so fascinating. When Enterprise was canceled in 2005, and until everything blew up at the magazine and Decipher Inc. at Communicator, I had a conversation with at least 2 crew people. Everybody was a little depressed because not only was Enterprise coming to an end, but 18 years of modern Star Trek was coming to an end, and there was no future in sight. And it was a year before the JJ deal for the movies was announced. And I remember someone looking at me and saying, "Oh, what about the magazine, the fan club? Does this affect you?" And I said, "Oh, no. We have tons of stories to tell. We're not tied to a current show." And I remember they were a little like, "What? What does that look like?" And look, for the 12 years of the fallow years, it was the licensees. It was books. It was StarTrek.com, as long as we were allowed to, until we were shut down. It was those people keeping the flame alive, as well as all the fans, increasingly cosplaying and fan filming and CGI modeling. And as all of those things rose up to fill the vacuum, until we had Fresh Trek again. And in between the movies, even as they were the Kelvin movies, even as they were a great magnet for new fans, in a lot of ways unsatisfying to old fans, at least it was something. Until we had regular production again, and suddenly so much to know and learn and meet and memorize and mock and model. But yeah, in between those times, and still to this day, Star Trek history, Star Trek archives is still a thing. The story is not finished at all yet. We're going to find our Black Drill Thrall, and we're going to find the story now, hopefully, of what happened to the 3-foot Enterprise. And one day, I hope to finally find who at, apparently, Film Effects of Hollywood, Frank Vanderveer, who did the visual effects for Space Seed. I know it was just in Greg Jean's auction, but just because the original Botany Bay model from 1967 is a known thing, and we know the company that built it, still don't know the exact person who did. That's just a wacky little thing of mine. There are still long lists of extras from all eras of Star Trek. There are still long lists of little nook and cranny questions that we don't know, that no one's bothered to ask. Some of them are big, high-profile ones. And so when we get to solve who was human Isis, it's a big thing. That was the best and the biggest headlines that the Trek Files ever got out in mainstream press, much less mainstream fan press. So hopefully we'll find this guy. Hopefully we'll find the story of the Enterprise. But never, ever, ever assume, don't assume anything anyway, but never assume that just because it's old, it's known, especially when it comes to Star Trek. There are so many Star Trek questions that we still don't know, the answers to questions we don't know. And as long as that's out there, and as long as there's new Star Trek cranking to be made, where we're going to be dependent on low down the totem pole records being kept. And this is why I preach. I just did it through the strikes to all the writers. Save your memos. They're digital now. They're not even paper. Does that make them easier to keep or easier to erase? Save your stuff. Save your receipts. Because next year, someone is going to be wondering about this. And the longer it goes as a mystery, the bigger the mystery becomes. We finally tracked down the Galileo 7 through its various owners and good intentions and restored it. And then that pendulum swung back to where it went from the prize of the Houston Space Center to the new philosophy, it's not real, stick it down in the diner and then stick it in a warehouse. And now, thankfully, James Cawley's got it up at Star Trek Tours on display in a home that appreciates it. But gang, pendulum swing that goes for the value and the worth of record keeping and records. And hopefully, at least out of the gate, those kinds of things were hung on to. Sometimes it just takes a while. Like April, like our lovely, handsome drill thrall, sir. Like what happened to the 3-foot Enterprise? It's just amazing. It's just amazing to me how we get into that. What are you thinking? Had you heard of it? Did you know about the 3-foot Enterprise missing? Did you know about the April Tatro saga? I know a lot of you listening today, watching, have, but maybe this is news. And maybe the discovery of the 3-footer, which again, the auction was halted. It was taken down. They're talking about what to do now. The owner of the storage unit who bought this content sight unseen and wound up with this prize, they're talking about how to get it back to the Roddenberrys. I don't know if anything corporately, Paramount hasn't. It's a mucked up model. Unless there was a big fund and budget for museum pieces, I don't think it's really going to be in the purview, especially since it was Gene's personal desk ornament for so long. But anyway, yeah, kids, history can be written by the victors, but history is also written by the careful. All right. That was fun. I love these days. We're soon going to be out. The Lower Decks finale, as I say this and record this, is tonight. It'll be out by the time a lot of you are watching this. What are we going to say? Because we don't have a comeback date yet for Discovery in the spring. We're waiting on, and we'll have Prodigy on Netflix. We don't know when season 2, the new, will be out next year at some point. So we've got at least 3 months here, apparently, coming of no fresh Trek. We're going to be talking about that. What's going to occupy our time when we go from 2 years of near weekly new Trek to back to the old days until the strike, delays catch up. And even then, what's the future of Trek? Those are all topics for future time. But it's going to be amazing to get back to a time when, after we let the dust settle from Lower Decks, and oh, what a season, oh, what a time. When that happens, what will we be talking about? Well, one thing I hope you're talking about is, if you're traveling for the holidays, you come in and think about taking a Trekland Treks with me. We'll go to 4 sites that you pick out in the day with a quick lunch, with me being your driver, your guide, your cosplay wrangler, your prop holder, your photographer, whatever you do, but we plan it ahead of time. You've got my expertise. We'll get around LA without the traffic headaches. We'll plan everything, weekend, weekday, whatever it is. And we will eliminate the surprises so you can enjoy your own customized away team, away mission. That's coming up. We have great weather in LA, in case you didn't know. It's a wonderful thing to start thinking about planning over the holidays if you're headed this way, or into the spring, because apparently we're going to be without Trek for just a little while. Yeah. Also, if you have not done so, I would encourage everybody to go over and check out the open house page at LarryNemecek.com. Again, that is, what's that number again? That number is LarryNemecek.com/openhouse23. There you go. Nick Meyer is our guest. We've just announced that today. That's awesome. And of course, as always, I want to thank these folks for helping us bring Trekland Tuesdays live and everything Trekland online to you. Our TTL Club, our Patreons. Hey, and again, that's Diana Hopkins, Robin Wilson, Lawrence Todd, Anne-Marie Siegel, Justin Porteous, Glenda Bruton, Chris Jiggins? Really, Larry? Chris Jiggins, Pranakasha Productions, Comedy Forecast, and Andrew Jasimski. And our live wires, our second tier folk, Robert McLean, Byron Bailey, J.R. Poole, Halbian Gunjansson, Alan Hoenzi, Dave Gregory, Tobias Rex, Donna S. Runyon, and Casey Shafsky. Thank you all, one and all, for that. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, I have a simple Patreon, patreon.com/Trekland Live, a $5, a $10 level. You can jump in, get a shout out, and at the $10 level, get access to the first few years of behind the scenes folks who are my Portal 47 guests. Up until now, only the Portales of those years have seen. It's kind of cool. Please do that. I think if everything I'm talking about today is intriguing, this is my jam, as the kids say, as the kids said 20 years ago. This is my jam. This is what I love doing. Aside from talking about the shows now, tracking some of this. It is kind of a mystery detective game. And at times, all of this overlaps. One of the shows, like Trek Files, is good for hunting this down. And what we do in Portal 47. Sometimes in an interview, something just pops out and like, oh my God, I'd never heard that before. Or we get a photo, personal photos from folks. That's why I love our Portal 47 guests that way. And no, you won't find it on YouTube. It's a paid membership, and that's part of the value. After the years go by, yeah, but not in the beginning. Meanwhile, the Trek Files, the home of the revelation of April Tedrow as Human Isis, and so many other great guests looking at aspects from right out of the Roddenberry files, our real Trek Files, with a professional or family guest. We're coming back from a hiatus next week. We're back. What is that? November 7th. Yes. November 7th, we'll be back for our 7th. Larry, we'll be back for our 11th season on November 7th. The old seasons are all still there. Podcast.roddenberry.com is where you can get all the Roddenberry podcasts. We're on Facebook with the documents. You can get it wherever fine podcasts are caught. But that's it. I hope you're all looking forward to our season debut with the great David Gerald. Will be our season premiere guest. And we're going to get into some arenas that, unless you're in a one-to-one conversation with David, he doesn't talk about. But the years have proved gentle, and we're going to dive into some aspects of David's career. You could read the Tribbles book. It's out there, but I think Tribbles will come up at some point. Anyway, the Trek Files is back next week. We're going to kick off season 11. David Gerald's our premier host, and you want to make sure and get that, right? The Trek Files on Facebook is where you can get everything, or wherever you get your podcast. Hey, gang, look, if you are watching us on YouTube later, this is the end of the show. I'm so glad you were with us watching now. But hey, it would be great if you could join us live, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, nominally 8 p.m. No, 9 p.m. UK time, 10 o'clock Central Europe. And we are global. We've got Aussies. We've had Africans. We've had folks in Asia. So it would be wonderful if you could join us live. You can get in on this lovely chat community firsthand. If you're watching us later, though, please leave a comment. It's never too late to have a conversation. We always do. And I am here. I will come back in and jump in with you if you want to. Or even if you don't. Meanwhile, otherwise, I am still hanging out on X Twitter at Larry Nemechek. That's also, though, YouTube. YouTube is where you really want to like and subscribe. And please share the channel around, would you please? Also Facebook and, yeah, Instagram too. And Portal 47. You're going to be hearing a lot about Portal 47 again as we get closer to the open house. But you can check it out now. Jump in if you want to now. Portal47.net. Once again, the open house is going to be free to the public. All you have to do is register for door prizes and for giving questions and to get the link. All right? The link will come along closer in, just so you know. That's going to do it. But if you're live with me, of course, hang on. We'll be right back. I'm going to take just a short break. But for now, please, everybody, I've talked to at least 4 or 5 folks that have COVID. Now, they've got COVID with their shots, with their vaccinations, but it's winter. The flu season is out there. Everybody just try to be smart about things. Okay? Do all the things. And most of all, stay woke. There is so much. We've got so many global issues with the Mideast now. There's good and there's bad. Nobody is a universal saint or angel or devil. There's a lot of murky gray, but there are a lot of people trying to simplify things into black and white. So this is once again why I say check the sources. A lot of professionals are being fooled. Journalists, storytellers. So the people who are supposed to be transferring the history. So it comes full circle with Star Trek. Would you please stay woke? Check the sources. And trek well, everybody. Okay. Going to backtrack. Oh, let me show you one quick thing. TV Geek is the company that apparently Parrot Analytics licenses ratings to. I did check them this week. I just want to pass that along. So Lower Decks is doing great. The animated series are always low down. We'll see how Prodigy does on Netflix, and we'll see what the internal Netflix reporting mechanisms and graphs metrics show once that starts happening. But Lower Decks on Parrots, by their average demand expression, if you've been watching us every week, if you haven't, we've been doing this since 2017. The last year or so, it started to diversify out here. Parrots no longer putting the weekly up-to-date metrics on their own page, but because they're selling them out. TV Geek is running them now. They're still about a week behind, but as of October 24th, the daily trend, the overall trend is up 1.8% for Lower Decks. The peak demand is at number 136, but more importantly, you know how we would always look at the by demand. Okay, the average demand is at 23 times the average show that they measure. The peak demand is at 24 times. So the days it drops, there's more demand, right? That's demand for that, and also people talking. So that's what Parrot does. They're scouring the internet. People criticize that methodology. Nielsen's has come a long way with their digital ratings. We'll take a look at that, looking at those, but there's still gaps in the methodology for that too. But that's it. Lower Decks is on a little bit of a spike. They're still in the outstanding. They're still in the upper 2.5%, right? In that outstanding band. Yeah. Which is great. We're going to talk a little bit about Lower Decks. I've got Second Opinion is coming here. We'll wrap up the finale, which has the title been out yet? I don't think it has. I know it's on our screeners that arrived on Monday. They're really riding tight on these finale wrap-ups, and you saw last week's episode. You see why, maybe? So here in just, less than 12 hours now. 9 hours, 8 hours. The finale for season 4 will be out, and it's a doozy, gang. It's a doozy. So I look forward to talking about that on Second Opinion with the Portales. Tonight is Ask Dr. Trek. It's a crazy busy time here. And I will also say, if you happen to be in LA this weekend and you have halfway interest, come out. It's Will Rogers' 144th birthday. We're having a bigger party than normal, a little bit of a splash. We've got free cake. We have a Route 66 car show, which Route 66 was the Will Rogers Highway. And it's the centennial coming in 2026. So we'll have some other activities going on, some special videos showing on our big screen. And I will be there the whole day. We'll have Will Roberts doing roping demos and giving kids lessons for swag. We've got a new Will Rogers Junior Ropers Club. Our docent, Deborah Moore, will be performing Betty Rogers and talking about the house inside. The tours will be going. It's just going to be a simple but very awesome day, all free. Unless you want to dip the kids class, the roping class with Will at 2 times. Otherwise, everything else is free. Come by, get some cake. How are we doing, gang? How are we doing? Cannot believe when I woke up and read the news about the 3-footer. That was crazy. I was tipped off about it, but I couldn't get in to see the shots. Thank you, John X. He was trying to tip me off, and I couldn't get to the site where they were posted. So let's see if we can... I know we had a little bit of a later start today. But good to see everybody. Hey, Analysis. Nick Locarno and Tom Paris are not the same person. There goes your fan theory. Well, you're not the only one, but I'm going to say you're going to have a little payoff in the finale episode, okay? That's all I'll say. You at least get acknowledged. All right? Is that a horrible tease? Okay, Christoph, coming to us from Western Austria there. I won't worry too much. Yay. I don't know. Can anybody tell a little bit different does the show vibe feel a little bit different? We were working on a different setup. And we'll see how this works. I'm going to do this differently we'll see how Portal and how Tuesdays Live and how Second Opinion works slightly differently. Hey, Tony. Nick. Yes. Oh no, analysis. Well, you've got 2 weeks. Can't you postpone? We'll have the recording out eventually. Yes, Dan, that's right. That's right. We had a group panel just about Star Trek 6 and the anniversary bit. Yes. Carl. Well, I didn't know I would be serenaded today, but yes. Okay. Again, everybody, if you can do a super chat and throw some coinage, put a little cross my palm with silver, I'll bump down and look for that first. Always looking for real questions. Oh, Dan, I meant to do something. What memories do I have of Michael? So many. And I wasn't working with him. Janet has even more. Here's a little Michael impromptu. And now I wish I had done this. So I have been, if you saw my socials, and thank you, Scott, thank you, Kyle. I did a 10% down payment on rejiggering a whole bunch of archival stuff, collating things, throwing things out. Don't worry, nothing valuable. The real trash. But getting half-empty boxes put into full boxes, all that kind of thing. Rejiggering how things are organized. If I've got things stored in 2 different places, getting it, all that kind of thing. And going back through our old scripts and wondering why I had an extra copy in one case of The Cloud. Here it is. This is a final draft, but it's not a final, meaning this was the final draft that started off. See, final draft. But see, there's no color change pages here. So this was a final draft before the blue pages and pinks and all that were. So this was first time in script with a shooting cover. But it was not going to be it would not be the final. There'd be all kinds of changes. And as early in the series as this is, because The Cloud is what, 4th episode, 5th episode? 6th. It's 106 and 102. And so it's really 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. It's really the 4th 1 hour. And I was slipping through and realized I started seeing what's kind of cool. Handwriting. And I suspected, and I consulted with Janet and Lolita, and this is Michael's writing. So this is the first, when he was prepping for all the blue pages, he started just notating things here, and probably gave this then to, at the time, I don't know. Well, by November, probably gave it to Janet, and she churned out the first blue pages. But there you go. Yeah. What a loss, Michael. He beat back. He never smoked. He was such a health nerd. He never smoked, but he had cancerous nodules in his throat, and they beat them down and thought he'd licked it, and then they came roaring back just within a couple of years. And we lost him. So ahead of his time. Such a mentor to so many folks. And now I feel like I should have talked a little bit about Michael today. I have in the past. I'll think about it for the future. But there you go. Dan. Just interesting that I just happen to have Michael's handwriting here on some pages on my desk. But so many things, so nice to me and so nice to Janet. And he signed off on buying what became Prophecy back in the day. And if he'd hung around the series longer after we got there, but he was just a really interesting mix of quirkiness and nerdiness, and could be a little aloof, but then also be warm and helpful at the same time. Get Ira talking about Michael sometime. But thank you. Well, hey, JR, this is what I mean. There is one place to look. And as I told Dayton, as I told a couple other people, look, if it's not in Bijo's 90s concordance, and he had nobody, no family or friends along the way to get him to Memory Alpha, the way that's happened in a lot of cases. A lot of people a lot of listings are in Memory Alpha because people or their offspring or their friends said, hey, you don't have my friend, my dad, my grandpa in here, my mom. She did this, da da da, and I'm her daughter, and here's a family photo, whatever. And they do provenance. Half the time, it's not even provenance. If it's an extra, nobody cares until there's some kind of a conflict, and then it gets worked out. And that's what happened finally with when they figured out that Victoria Vetri was not human ISIS, but they didn't know who to replace it with. There was still, we went back to having a hole there. And then some people still didn't get the memo until we presented April. But that's the thing. In this specific case, we're talking about Star Trek extras. By now, if their family, loved one, hasn't jumped up to claim it, there is only one place to look, and that's buried in the file drawers. And it's an awesome responsibility, but we will take it on and let you know. We'll let you know. Yes, Glenn, to switch back to the mainstream about Assignment Earth, absolutely. I still feel like Star Trek ought to take, unless they're worried about duplicating Doctor Who, I still think they own it. There have been comic series, right? Comic books lines have been done of the Assignment Earth characters. Because it was a pilot. It was ready-made to have a series of adventures. It was all that. We have the papers where Dorothy Fontana was collating science fiction stories that would make good adaptations for the Assignment Earth format for Gary Seven and Roberta Lincoln team to tackle. Oh. Well, this is what I say, Trek reviewer. Welcome to the reality. This is the way the world, this is the first time anybody has cared on a huge level on a property. You know what I'm saying? There have to be all those ducks in a row. It has to be something people care about that much over a long enough period of time, and then finally some things bubble to the surface. Or sometimes you just go find the 3-footer in an unclaimed storage barn. But your reaction is what I'm talking to today. And it's totally human. I'm just saying there are a lot of people who seem shocked to know that there are so many names we don't know the name, and that's why. Analysis. Considering yesterday's Halloween, going to ask the same question: how much does Mary Shelley's Frankenstein impact on the creation of Data for Next Generation? It doesn't. Maybe a little bit. Quester affects Next Generation. Pinocchio affects Data. Now, what was it? Eye of the Beholder? The 7th season episode where Data loses his memory and he's with the kind of post-medieval society that thinks they know science, and he's killing them with the radiation until he gets his own memory back and figures it out. The tagline for that episode was Data as Frankenstein, because then you actually have the villagers with the torches, right? Pitchforks coming for him. That's the closest tie over to Frankenstein I'm thinking about. I don't think, and I'm sure it was in the mix, maybe, but really it was the whole thing about on the road to getting emotions, as test driven, as beta tested by Quester, with a little Pinocchio, as you get in the very first scene with Data from the Next Gen pilot from Farpoint, right? Hey, Maria. Hello down in Brazil. Yay. Rick Beato? Don, you got to explain who that is. I'm sorry if I should know, but I'll be happy to be helloed by the raid. Crossing over. Hey, Analysis, I'm not sure I totally get what you're saying here. I'm missing a few words. Well, it's there. In the beginning, we kept the StarTrek.com database up because it was pulling from my things, which nobody else had at the time. Bijo had the original series and movies, and I was doing Bijo for Next Gen, and that's what got me the companion book. But then Mike did the encyclopedia, so yada yada. But everybody was keeping their own internal stuff, and Memory Alpha kind of made it public. and the pace was getting so fast that a lot of people, hobby people can do a lot more than people who have day jobs, even if they're getting paid to do it because it's a job. I know that's counterintuitive, but that's the way it is. If you got a day job to support you, you can spend all your evenings going off on your hobby, and that's what built Memory Alpha and a lot of other things. So I hear you saying you think Memory Alpha is a little overrated. They can get caught up in their own weirdness definitions and procedures sometimes. Sometimes they don't see the forest for the trees. For years and years and years, they hung on to the star map behind Remy's head, alien Remy's head that gets blown up in Conspiracy because it was big and splashy, and then it was and it's like they didn't get the concept of evolving. And you just have to say, okay, that's an art piece. That's not literally it, because things evolved a different way after the quadrants were set up. But they were just dug in and would not relent, even though other maps were on screen, even though by Voyager's time it was, there it is on Astrometrics, and they wouldn't unclench about it. But then again, it's a little bit like Rick Berman producing Star Trek. The same things that make you successful become your limitations. So it's a balancing line. For the most part, for the massive amounts of detail and all, Memory Alpha is not only indispensable, but it was really a wiki before people had the term wiki. I just love how, Wikipedia kind of came along. But Memory Alpha comes right out of B. Joe's Concordance. It's the folks in the 70s. Star Trek demanded people needed to know that stuff. And it's like, well, we're going to get it one way or the other. And there's no internet yet, so we'll do it on paper. It's like everything else. Star Trek made things get invented that you couldn't do it. So we had to do it with paper and stamps in the beginning. We had the internet with paper and stamps. People demanded to know that amount of creator and behind the scenes and production information because the passion that Star Trek created. Nothing like that before on a sustained level. Maybe you'd spike for a movie star or you'd spike for a band. And yeah, I know the Beatles, 8, 10, 12 years there, but not like that. Let's see. Well, you're welcome. It's just where my mind went when I was first a fan. JR, if you had a time machine, you would go back in time and wander onto set in costume, claiming you're on the B time and where I should stand for lighting. Well, if your name wasn't on a list, you might be interested. The second AD or somebody's second AD might have an issue with you. I'm sorry, you're not on my list. Yeah. But then again, you're there the day that somebody didn't come in and they're running around trying to find somebody that fits this suit. See, it's wacky how things happen sometimes. Oh, AQ. Actual question, not alpha quadrant, but actual question. Are there union rules or the like that specify circumstances that trigger inclusion of extras and credits and the like sex number of paid hours get you? No, it's you get a credit if you get a line. And then you have to get, if you speak on camera, now you're bumped up to a different pay. See, it's not just about the thing. It's tied into who's paid for what. And screen credit, it's not quite a clout issue that's added on by contract, but because when you get to that level, now you're talking about, are you just in a list, or do you get a single title card, meaning you're the single name, or will you consent to share it with one other person? Do you demand 50% of a title card? Are you cloudy enough to be able to demand a single card? And then are you up front? Are you at the back? What did your thing say? Do you get an and? What did your thing? Maybe, but very rarely. When you say crew, you mean like gaffers and grips. You don't mean like stand-ins, because stand-ins became, because they had no other function to distract them all the time. Occasionally, but more often than not on Star Trek, if someone on the crew got on camera, it was a special thing. Like the Vic scene, the final Vic scene at the finale of DS9. what we leave behind. Sure. Could use Memory Alpha to find genealogical information, like what jobs they did. That would be, yeah, sure. It feels, well, maybe that's because it is, Andrew. I know that in about 4 hours, I'm going to have Ask Dr. Trek with the Portales, and that's always Wednesday. So 2 weeks from tonight, gang, is open house. You could call the search extra credit. Thank you, Carl. That's cute. Christy Hayden has a fantastic story about how Adam Nimoy caused a stir by asking her to speak on camera. Is this from one of his TNGs? From Timescape or from Rascals? Well, yeah. See, this is what I mean. The person who found it in his storage barn was so naive, he thought that he would start an auction at 1,000 when it would be, at least 10 times that, if not more. The first enterprise, literally, right? Well, yes. That's what fuels that reality show, Storage Wars. That's the kind of thing they would have loved to have had on camera. I wouldn't doubt if somebody from Storage Wars still on. I don't watch reality shows, but I would be amazed if someone from Storage Wars hasn't already at least found this person to at least ask them what the situation is. No, they did not take Polaroids of everything or hold on to all the Polaroids. Yeah. Well, if you look at the photos, I know comedy, the model needs some help. Unless someone makes a decision to say, we're going to keep it intact. Otherwise, as when they restored the original helm console, the navigation helm, they need to, there's joints and flaked paint, and the decals are, faded versus the not decal. All of that. Actually, Christoph, no. This has been in the works for 2 or 3 months and got delayed, and then we finally got together. And I go through my files, but a lot of things have been disrupted. And I need to condense and refile and recatalog and everything, and find some things I'm looking for that I can't find. Okay, correction. History is preserved by the careful. Yes, but those are the preservationists. I'm talking about the people who generated the paper that had it in file folders in the beginning. They aren't preservers. They're just doing their jobs. But if they were careful and had a foresight that maybe they shouldn't throw it away, they're not going to be the end game. They're the front game. That makes sense. That's what I meant. But you're true. Careful. I don't think the preservers are the people we need to worry about. They're already in the game. They've got the mindset already. Yeah, JR, this is it. The business of TV versus the culture of TV. Mm-hmm. Well, that was the attitude Paramount itself used to until the 2005 divorce, and they were looking for new revenue streams, and the world was changing. But in the old days, all through the 90s, all through the Berman era of Trek, Paramount, they had tours, but it was more like they would do some little dinky, tourist tours, but you walked around. They didn't do the golf carts, and they saved the golf carts for VIP tours, which were if bigwigs or anybody at an office had friends come on, they wanted to impress or show off, or they had family from back, whatever, you could sign up and do a VIP tour. And there was a way to pay for those, but they didn't even advertise them, because the basic idea was Paramount had this snooty idea up until the divorce and the change in leadership that they were the only studio still in Hollywood, and the rest of them were in Burbank or over the hill or down in Culver. And they were the only real studio in Hollywood, and they were not a tourist trap. So they would get a dig in at Universal, and even Warner Brothers. But then Warner Brothers has a museum with a paid curator on staff, and they have tours, and they do museum shows with a licensed actual, they have a 2-story museum. If you ever get to go to Warner Brothers, take the tour. The bottom is a pretty static. They change things out rarely, but the second floor is a theme exhibit. When Harry Potter was huge, the whole second floor for 2 or 3 years at least, was a whole Harry Potter, and they would pull props and costumes and things over and have them there. And even like pieces of sets, the stairs, Harry's understairs room, that was there intact. So if you were a Harry Potter's fan, you were just in seventh heaven. But Warner Brothers is not a touristy. They're making a dig at Universal for the whole Universal's tour ride thing. But that's out there. Now, I was shocked the first time I saw Paramount had a dedicated room after the divorce and after the change and all that, had a room of props, and there's 2 or 3 or 4 Star Trek things there. Of course, they're all Kelvin Universe, so they're all fakey, but they're still interesting. And you could go up on the transporter pad and take a picture and all that. So, but for years and years and years, Paramount was all about the business side and not the culture. And they sneered at the studios that tried to cater to the culture that way with tours and exhibits and things. Not so much now, because it's all money and it's all social media. Go take pictures and post. It's amazing the attitudes that social media changed in some circles. Having cameras in museums in across the board, social media changed, because now people are begging for the free publicity that hashtagging and sharing social media brings you. And especially when Flash is going away. I'm speaking from the heart here from Will Rogers, firsthand. Boy, Analysis, you're really on fire today, huh? Yeah, Star Trek Live when it's dead sounds like an oxymoron. Yeah. When we don't have it, we carry it in our hearts, the greatest. Yes, but since that fades generationally. I was so big on Northern Exposure, and the town where they filmed in was like a living museum, and people sold souvenirs and all of that stuff. And I was going to do a book in 2006. I wanted to write a book and talk to people and do a Star Trek making of type book for Northern Exposure while all the people. And I haven't been back since. And I wonder if anybody even knows to go to Roslyn and that what the Northern Exposure bits are. Now, Twin Peaks is still going up the road. Twin Peaks is still able to have some kind of a following. It's diminished, and the new versions brought some of that back, but it's still not what it was in the heyday. You're so ready for what, Don? Yes, Analysis. You can make a suggestion. You should make it to somebody besides me. But I think, yeah, it went away from Gene's desk, so Magel's desk. So I don't know if Alex would want it. That's who Alex Kurtzman is the Rick Berman now of today, is the Gene Roddenberry today. Yeah. Hashtag no fresh Trek. We've gone from the year of Trek to the last Trek of the year with more year left on the calendar. Exactly. What are you saying, Glenn? Any thoughts of using Instagram threads for Trekland? No. I went over and made a big deal about going to Mastodon, and then when 17 other wannabe apps came on, and I know Threads is the biggest just because it's Google's. I just can't until I know it's a two-way street, but I've still got 13,000 people on Twitter, and I know it goes more and more fascist every day, and more blue checkers take over. They think they can buy their way into credibility, because it's just totally backwards from what it used to be. And we'll just see how it continues to dissolve. There'll come some red line. There'll come some trigger. But other than that, there are 4 or 5 other things that flash up and then don't take off. And I don't know, is Threads becoming, if one of them emerges as the one to go to, but some people don't want to go to Threads just because it is Google and they don't want to be part of the Google family. But anyway, So no, to answer your question, no. Trek break tips. First week of December, SNW's Season 2 and Babylon 5 Blu-rays. Thank you, Christoph. There you go. Was that European dates or US dates? Hey, Dominic. Good to see you back with us. Where's the new Kelvin and the Quentin T movie? Well, I don't know about the Quentin Tarantino movie. But the new Kelvin, supposedly it's being workshopped in the bowels of whatever the remarried Paramount feature side looks like. What are some of my favorite old Trek books? I have a little Trek fiction and some new old recommended Trek. Well, that's true. And I'll do a show about, we do this. The last time there was a big break, I said, this will be one of my fallow weeks topics here is what to do. You know what? This is going to be wacky, but when they relaunched the fiction line with motion picture, I remember being very keen on The Covenant of the Crown, which was like a second or third book after the novelization, and then Where No One's Gone Before, I think. It was the one, except it was a transparent spider, not the Traveler. But it was the same book that they basically repurposed for early Next Generation. But then I think the third one was Covenant of the Crown, which was original series. And it was just an old-fashioned story. And it was McCoy-centric, McCoy and a princess on this alien planet. And I just remember thinking it just read like an old school episode. It just effortlessly flowed along. And then I found out that it was Howard Weinstein wrote it. And Howie Weinstein had written for the animated series and was a young fan and professional author. And I didn't get to meet him for decades until finally I got to a shore leave and met him in the aughts, I guess. But I read the ones going all along. I read Joe Haldeman in the Bantam years wrote, what was it? Planet. Anyway, there was a backstory where they imagined McCoy's wife and her name was Honey, the one that he later divorced. And I was like, ooh, McCoy backstory, an ancient McCoy backstory. Thank you for the historical dating, JR. 20 years ago, you did indeed say this is my jam. Today, it feels like old people trying to sound young. Oh, well, thank you, Christoph. Threads is not in the EU because they've got, the EU defends digital privacy and all the digital. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Melanie, that was a fan fiction episode. Barbara Luna, had a shuttlecraft in her garage. And Decker was in that too. There you go, JR. Hope you got some takers for Trekland Global Bingo. Thank you for the needle there, Christoph. Oops, sorry. Boom. There we go. Thank you for the needle. Yeah, Melanie. They were after one guy and bombed the whole. 2026 also marks the centenary of NBC. Doom, doom, doom. The National Broadcasting Company. And the 60th anniversary of the Star Trek multiverse. Oh, that. I was in Will Rogers mode there, gang. So, see me. Let's see. Hey, Maria. I think I said this. Yes, I have seen, the last episode of the season. I hope it's not the last episode of Lower Decks. But yes, it's really good. It just goes right there. And there's some cute surprises in it. Yes. They saved some aha bits for the finale. Okay? And if you saw my second opinion last week, I was throwing out all kinds of whatabouts, and at least one or two of them were there-ish. Anyway, yes, I highly recommend it. It's a can't miss. Yeah, she was talking about episode 10 of the season, though, Christoph. But thank you for the plug. Thank you for posting the link. Please supply your sage widget to the. Oh, I have everything preserved. Yeah, it just needs to be finished. Question: you think La'an is the most complete security chief on a Federation Starship Enterprise? Who do I think is? So more than Worf? More than Giotto? Kirk's the only security chief we ever saw Kirk have. Let's see. On a Federation Starship Enterprise. Right. Well, how many do we see? Do we know the security chief on? Because Chekhov is being back to navigator, not running security, I believe. By the late movies. We only know Worf, Tasha and Worf, and Lieutenant Commander Giotto. Barry Ross, was that his name? No, not Barry Ross. The B, the C. Who was chief of security on the C? Was Tasha chief of security on the? No. Anyway, well, after she went back, haha. So that's kind of a easy one. She's only competing with Worf and Tasha. Okay. Well, if you have a family feeling, some residuals. I mean, it was pennies, one episode, but still, that was the feel good of wrapping up the show. That's what you see that. Yeah. Okay, so she was in. Was she one of the kid actors? I'm totally away from the names of the folks, much less your original post on that, Nathaniel. But there you go. Well, Cairo, there's a reason you didn't get the memo that it's Tuesday. Yeah, they have a different rate of pay, minimums. Well, this is true, but it doesn't really transfer to the movies because what they're showing the tourists are like bits from old, like they use the Kong monster for ages. What the tourists are seeing is usually retro stuff. There may be some exhibits of upcoming movies, but everything they're seeing is old. Now, in the world of now, nothing is too old to throw up on streaming anymore. That aspect may have changed and evolved too. And of course, once you're there, they can put posters up, but physical, unless it's in that sweet spot where they would pull something over that had shot but wasn't out yet, and you could go up and look at it and whet your appetite. That's a thing, but that's not like a really big, huge programmable, systematic way, I don't think. Okay. Cool. Cool, Robert. And I should say that, yes, TP47, get a free plug-in for your business here, everybody. A lot of real life stuff happening on Tuesdays recently. Okay. Well, see, this is what I mean, Carl. It's all over the place. There's Blue Sky and Mastodon and Post and Threads and, Hey, Carl, I would love to find a way to bring back Nonfiction Fridays in a way that makes sense. It was just getting stagnant. I mean, the 20 guys and 2 women were having a ball, but it just wasn't going anywhere in the middle of the pandemic moving on. Life Support Live was moving along, and part of it was me doing it on Zoom, I think. So, but the concept and the idea is still here, and I'll just say stay tuned. I have not given up on finding a way to do that. that makes sense, but it needs to be monetized, and I can't just do the 15th thing that's eating up time as much as I would love to. Or if something else took off, and let that be, the fun thing to do. Okay. Oh, wow. Joe Haldeman is see, I haven't kept up. That's awesome. That is awesome. See, this is what I mean, JR. It was like an internet-wide, and I still don't know what sparked it. It only had to be one person, but then it caught on like a flame. I'm just saying, there's the hunt, and then there's the reaction of people who are just shocked that this isn't all known already. It's like there's a lot of things that aren't known already. It's totally random of why we know things and why we don't. What gets me is if Bijo didn't get it in her 90s updated concordance to begin with, I don't know why she didn't. But then again, she didn't have April. So there we go. And there's 2 votes for the, as if people aren't going to watch the finale if they've been watching all season. Okay, we have global recent. Thank you again, Christoph, for doing that. There you go. Well, it'll be another year, or 10 months, probably the same time of year again, to August, wasn't it? It'll probably be right after Vegas next year, right before DragonCon. Well, Michael, did Giotto really have a meteoric rise to Commodore, or did he have to change his name? To me, if you have to change your name to get somewhere, that means that maybe you're hiding from something. Go Google what we're talking about, everybody. I'm the tough love Trek show. I don't give you any information. I'll make you go look it up. We'll just vague chat here. Yeah, I think you meant the Strange New World, and that's going to be long. That may be a year and a half. That could very well be latter 2024. Wow, really? $12 for the hardcover? That's what. By the way, I have the hardcover too. I wound up with it, some random, bin thing back in the day. Well, you said the Enterprise, so I wasn't thinking Titan. But there we go. Was Dickerson the security chief, or was he just head of that the detail? I thought. And Daniels on the E when Worf is not there. Yeah, but see, what Worf was the but then he wouldn't be the security chief if he was the assistant security chief. Okay, but that's not what you said. Oh, Dan, I didn't. After all this time, and you're giving me deep questions. I haven't seen Once Upon a Planet in at least 5 years, 6 years. How would I have made that episode better? Okay, I rehired one of the guy who was the original caretaker, who was not Napreen. Oh, I think JR, you need to ask the chat audience. I think you need to ask the TTLers. Well, I would say just go and get other zines, find other zines and zine authors and read their stuff. Or writing should be just writing. It shouldn't be fan versus pro. If you enjoy writing, just dive in and start writing, and then get in a writer circle and have people give you feedback. Okay, I'm losing track of things here. Giotto was the OG. Oh, Michael, there's plenty of OG Nick Locarnos. Come on. Diana Muldaur was the OG Mrs. Nick Locarno or something. I don't know. Oh, this is interesting, Sean. What was the biggest Trek secret I was told I had to sit on for months or years? Wow. Well, if it's years, dot, 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 I'm not going to say it right now. But like in the day? Well, when I was doing The Companion and was out work, I mean, when we were working, I mean, I knew the Next Gen, I knew All Good Things, 2 months before it aired. The TNG movies, knew them 3, 4, 5 months before they aired. We didn't have NDAs. We didn't have North Dakota associations. It was just like if you leaked something, then you were just, your name was mud, and you would be banned from the lot by Rick, or you would never have Paramount entrust you with anything again. It was like, that's a great trick, Daffy. Too bad I can only do it once. So that's a thing. But I mean, like things you would see, trials and tribulations, just seeing how awesome that was, and not knowing, not talking about it. Okay. Yeah. Glenn, you're totally welcome to be stoked about finding the 3-foot model. That's kind of amazing. And again, what's amazing is I had this topic about the way history is not always perfectly preserved, and boom, that fed right into my topic. Okay, gang, I think that is the end of the chat. Oh, maybe I will just save that. We may be desperate. I had something else I was going to show and tell, but I think I'll just save that. We've got a plenty long show today. And I'm going to be needing topics for the next few weeks. So, hey, everybody, it is great to see everybody once again here on we will be back on Tuesday for Norms next week. Normal Tuesday again. And I'm sitting here with a mess. Just a quick reminder again, if you're coming out to the West Coast, if you're coming to LA, how about there we go. TreklandTrucks.com. Get with me. We'll give you a customized away mission to remember. I will handle all the details. Also, once again, set the day, save the date, Wednesday, November 15th, 7 o'clock for Nick. 6 o'clock is actually the hour we'll have the Ask Dr. Trek. It's basically open mic roundtable. You want to talk to me about something, ask me a question, whatever, come in at 6. We'll be on Zoom, so it'll be easy to get around, okay? 6 o'clock for the Ask Dr. Trek sample open house, and then 7 for Nick, Wednesday, November 15th. And again, it's LarryNemechek.com/openhouse23. Pretty easy to get to. And another thank you, of course, to all of our Patreons and our TTL clubbers. Thank you all so much. We're gradually adding on to the Trekland network. And you just never know, we might have some new news down the line. $5, $10 at Patreon/Trekland Live. Thank you guys so much and gals and peeps for doing that. And once again, I need a special one. The Trek Files season premiere. We're back from hiatus next week with David Gerald. Maybe I shouldn't have announced the guest so soon, but that's cool. The Trek Files on Facebook is where we always have the documents as well as the audio. You can get the audio anywhere. And podcast.roddenberry.com is where all the great Roddenberry podcasts are. It's Larry Nemechek. Yes, I know, on X Twitter. For now. Trekland, make sure you like and subscribe here on YouTube. And if you're not there, please go over and do it. Also, Facebook, sure. And also Instagram is where I try to put up a lot of cool stuff too these days. Portal47.net. Go check it out. And for sure, go get in line. Claim your spot for all the good stuff when we do have open house, okay? Gang, thank you so much for... this has been a little bit of an experiment today. It's nothing that's hopefully showing on your side, but I think it's been okay. You would never know it, but everything behind me was totally taken down and gone a couple of days ago, but it's back now. And we'll be back next Tuesday. And until then, hey, look, just that's not what I started to say. Hashtag, yeah. Do all the things. Just stay healthy and stay woke. Check your sources and trek well.